My 2018 Silverado started making a grinding sound coming from the front left wheel. Faint at first, but by week 2, it was loud enough that my wife asked what it was from the passenger seat. Wheel bearing, classic Silverado problem. So I called the dealer to get the part. 2 things happen when you make that call. Either they find it, and the number they read back makes you pull the phone away from your ear and look at it like it said something wrong. $860 for a wheel bearing on a truck that's 6 years old, or they tell you it's not available. No stock, no ETA. Come back in 6 weeks, maybe 8, they'll let you know. I got the price shock on the bearing. Then 2 weeks later on a different part for the same truck, I got the availability blackout. And here's what neither call ever includes. A reason. No explanation for why a part on a truck sold in the millions costs what a car payment costs. No explanation for why it simply doesn't exist in their system. You get the number or you get the silence, and you're expected to just live with both. I didn't. I spent time tracing exactly why Silverado parts either cost more than they should or disappear entirely. And what I found is something GM and your dealer are both counting on you, never looking into. Stay with me, because this one changes how you'll approach every repair going forward. The first wall. The 6-week lead time is the first thing that should make you suspicious. When I pushed the service advisor on the timeline, he offered an alternative. A dealer in Texas had one in stock. $890. 2 weeks out. This is important. The part existed. It was available. The 6 weeks wasn't a supply reality. It was a fulfillment priority. Here's how that works. GM's dealer network has a tiered ordering system. Standard retail orders get standard fulfillment windows, but when a dealer has a vehicle in their service bay, generating a bay occupancy cost, a service manager can escalate the order priority, and suddenly parts that quote at 6 weeks arrive in 10 to 14 days. The 6-week number you hear over the phone is what happens when they don't need to prioritize your situation. It's a default, not a ceiling. I declined the Texas option, hung up, and started tracing the part number myself. The part number system. This is where it gets structural. GM manages what's called a supersession chain for every part number in their catalog. When a vehicle generation ends, or when GM decides to revise a component, the original part number gets superseded to a new one. Each supersession can come with a new pricing tier, a new distribution path, and in some cases, a quiet change in availability at independent outlets. For the 2017 Silverado encoder motor, I found 3 active part numbers across a 5-year window. One was listed as obsolete in GM's catalog. One had been superseded. The current valid number was on a 3 to 4 month backorder at GM's central distribution hub, which is exactly why the dealer quotes 6 weeks. They're not making it up. They're just not telling you that the supersession system is partly designed to keep certain components inside the dealer network. The wholesale distributor I eventually reached told me something worth understanding. He said the encoder motor I needed had been available continuously through his network, same spec, verified fitment, for under $200, for the entire period that the OEM number was listed as backordered. The backorder didn't affect the actual supply. It affected the OEM specific supply. And most Silverado owners don't know those are 2 different things. What 2026 added to this? The tariff changes that hit automotive parts imports in late 2025 made a situation that was already complicated significantly worse on the price side. A significant portion of GM's Tier 1 and Tier 2 supplier base operates across the Mexico and Canada borders, casting operations, sensor assemblies, wiring harness manufacturers, electronic module suppliers. When the tariff structure shifted, those suppliers had one choice: absorb the margin compression or pass it through. Most passed it through. A parts wholesale manager I spoke to tracks cost increases across his entire catalog. He told me his average cost on GM drivetrain and suspension components increased between 18 and 32% from mid-2025 to early 2026. It didn't show up as a line item on dealer quotes. It showed up as the number being higher when you called. There's no label on it, no explanation offered. The price is just what it is now. That encoder motor I mentioned? In 2023, the OEM dealer price on that unit was around $680. The same part number, same application, same dealer in 2026, $1,140. Some of that is normal parts inflation. A meaningful portion of that is tariff pass-through that nobody announced. What the dealer's not telling you. There are 3 things a service advisor will not tell you when you're standing at the parts counter. Not because they're lying, because the information costs them revenue. First, dealer parts margins. On standard replacement components, the markup between what a dealer pays GM and what they charge you runs between 20 and 40%. On components with limited outside competition, parts that only fit one generation of truck, or components with limited aftermarket alternatives, that margin climbs higher. The $1,140 quote on my encoder motor included a margin that made it worth the dealer's time to hold the part conversation. The $168 version from a wholesale distributor didn't generate that margin for anyone. That's why one source tells you about it and the other doesn't. Second, the availability infrastructure that exists outside the dealer network. Independent wholesale distributors, shop direct suppliers, remanufacturing operations. These are not backyard eBay sellers. These are businesses that service hundreds of independent shops, carry real fitment data, and offer warranties on what they sell. Dealers are not trained to direct you toward them. Dealers are trained to close the transaction at the counter. Third, remanufactured units with real warranties are often the correct call on mechanical components, and they're almost never mentioned at the dealer. A remanufactured encoder motor, pressure tested, spec verified with a 12-month warranty, runs about $90 to $110 through the right source. The dealer will quote you OEM new because that's the part they can order. Reman isn't in their system. It exists outside of it. A service advisor I know at an independent shop put it plainly. He said the parts desk at a dealership is a profit center, not a resource center. That distinction explains most of what you experience when you make that first call, where the parts actually are. Here's the practical side of everything above. Most OEM Silverado components are manufactured by a small number of Tier 1 suppliers, the same suppliers who also feed the aftermarket under different labels. When you buy a quality aftermarket component for a Silverado, you are frequently buying the same casting, the same sensor assembly, or the same motor core as the OEM unit, without GM's part number on the box, and without GM's distribution margin in the price. The sources that actually work, GM-specific wholesale distributors that serve independent shops directly. These are not general automotive marketplaces. They carry verified fitment data, real part numbers cross-referenced against OEM supersession chains, and humans you can call who understand the difference between a K2XX application and an earlier generation. Search specifically for GM or Silverado specialty wholesale suppliers. They exist in most regional markets, and many operate online with nationwide shipping. For electrical components, sensors, actuators, control modules, always cross-reference the OEM part number against your specific engine and trim code before ordering. Year, make, model lookups miss trim-specific and engine-specific variants constantly, and that mistake costs you a return shipping label and 2 extra days. For mechanical components, transfer case parts, differential assemblies, steering components, remanufactured units with documented warranty coverage are almost always superior to new aftermarket. The core charge feels like a penalty. What you're actually paying for is a unit with known fitment, tested under load, and backed by a warranty that a low-cost import version won't offer. Salvage is a legitimate strategy right now. Silverados from the 2014-2019 generation are coming off the road in volume due to front-end damage and flood events. The drivetrains on these trucks are frequently undamaged and low mileage relative to the truck's age. LKQ and regional pull-it yards are stocked with them. Call before you drive. Verify the mileage on the donor vehicle if the yard records it. The encoder motor I I was looking for exists on every Z71 equipped Silverado from that generation. The dealer's 6-week timeline exists in a parallel universe where salvage yards don't. The number that closes this: the encoder motor I needed, $1,140 at the dealer, 6 weeks out. What I actually paid, $168 through a GM specialty wholesale distributor. In my hands in 4 days. Same truck, same part, same failure mode, different knowledge going into the call. The part situation on Silverados isn't improving. Tariff pricing is holding. Part number consolidation continues. Dealer margins aren't compressing. What changes is how prepared you are before you make that first call, because the dealer is counting on you not being. If this is the kind of information your service advisor forgets to mention, subscribe. That's the only reason this channel exists.